The air in Harbor Bistro was thick with the scent of garlic and regret. I tied my apron tighter, the rough fabric chafing against my waist as I scanned the crowded dining room. Seattle's evening buzz filtered through the open windows. Car horns, distant laughter, the hum of a city that never quite slept. But inside, the clatter of plates and the low drone of conversation drowned out everything else. My sneakers squeaked on the polished hardwood as I moved between tables, balancing a tray of iced teas and forcing a smile that felt like it might crack my face. I was Hadley, the girl who kept the glasses full and the complaints at bay, 6 nights a week, chasing tips to fund a dream that felt more like a mirage with every shift. Tonight was different, though. The moment Vanessa strutted through the door, her red stilettos clicking like a countdown, I knew it. My sister, the golden child, the ad executive with a smile sharp enough to cut glass, had arrived to celebrate her latest promotion. Behind her trailed Claudia, our stepmother, her pearls gleaming under the bistro's dim lights, her smirk as polished as her jewelry. They brought an entourage, friends with loud laughs and expensive watches, the kind who tipped poorly but expected you to grovel. My father, Richard, lagged behind, his eyes glued to his phone, as distant as ever. The sight of them twisted something in my gut, not just nerves, but something older, heavier, like a bruise that never quite healed. "God, this place is quaint," Vanessa said, loud enough for the nearest tables to turn. Her eyes locked on me, her lips curling into a smile that didn't reach them. "Still wiping tables, Hadley? They haven't made you, napkin folder-in-chief yet?" Her friends chuckled, and Claudia leaned toward a woman in a beige blazer, whispering, "Poor thing, stuck." The words landed like a slap, but I kept my face neutral, guiding them to a booth near the window where the city lights made their smugness look almost cinematic. I was used to this. Vanessa's barbs, Claudia's condescension, the way they turned every interaction into a performance of my inadequacy. 8 years ago, I'd walked away from a tech internship at a sleek startup in Silicon Valley, one my family had bragged about to anyone who'd listen. I did it to care for Grandma Rose, who'd raised me when my mother's illness left her too weak to hold a spoon. No one else stepped up. Vanessa was too busy climbing corporate ladders, Claudia too preoccupied with her socialite luncheons, and Dad, well, he just didn't show up. When I told them I'd dropped out of the program, Claudia's face had twisted like I'd spat in her wine. "You threw away your future for a dying woman," she'd said. "Who's going to take you seriously now?" Vanessa had laughed, a high-practiced sound that still echoed in my nightmares. Dad stayed silent, as always. Now, as I set down their waters, Vanessa scanned the room like she was auditioning for a reality show. "I'm here to celebrate myself," she said, flipping her hair. "Big promotion." "You wouldn't understand." Her friend snickered, and Claudia's whisper carried again. "She's got no ambition." I didn't flinch, just kept moving. Menus, drinks, breadsticks. Pretending their words slid off me like water on glass, but they didn't. They burned, acidic and familiar, eating away at the edges of my composure. The bistro was packed, the kind of Friday night crowd that tipped well if you played your part right. I moved through the motions, refill a coffee here, clear a plate there, smile until my cheeks ached, but my mind kept drifting back to that internship, to the life I might have had if I hadn't chosen love over ambition. Grandma Rose had been my anchor, the one who saw me when no one else did. And she died. I didn't just lose her. I lost the version of myself who believed I could be more than this. Now I was 28, scraping by on tips, dreaming of a bookkeeping course that felt as distant as the moon. Every penny I saved was a prayer, a plea for a future where I didn't have to count change to buy milk. 7:45, I brought their entrees, Vanessa's Caesar salad sat pristine on its plate, no anchovies, light dressing just as she liked it. She stared at it like I'd served her a dead rat. "This is soaked," she snapped, her voice carrying over the hum of the restaurant. "Did you even listen?" I reached for the plate, calm as ever. "I'll get you a new one." But before I could, she stood, her smile twisting into something cruel. In one fluid motion, she grabbed the plate and upended it over my head. The world slowed. Cold romaine and oily dressing slid down my hair, dripping onto my shoulders, splattering my apron. Parmesan clung to my cheek like a taunt. The restaurant fell silent, forks frozen midair, every eye on me. Vanessa's friends gasped, then laughed, a sharp, hyena-like sound that cut through the quiet. Claudia covered her mouth, but her eyes gleamed with amusement. "Maybe now she knows her place," she said, loud enough for the front tables to hear. Dad looked away, his phone still glowing in his hand. I stood there, vinaigrette trickling down my neck, my pulse hammering in my ears. The urge to scream, to throw the nearest glass, burned hot in my chest. But I didn't. I reached down, picked up a crumpled napkin from the floor, and wiped my face. My hands didn't shake, my eyes didn't water. I smiled, not the forced waitress smile, but something sharper, something that made Vanessa's smirk falter for half a second, because I knew something they didn't, something that would make their laughter choke in their throats. I turned and walked to the back, each step deliberate, the weight of every stare heavy on my spine. In the break room, I closed the door. Not a slam, just a soft click. I leaned against the wall, the smell of dressing clinging to me like shame. But beneath the rage, beneath the sting of their words, something else stirred. Grandma Rose's voice, low and steady, echoed in my mind. "The quiet ones don't stay quiet forever. They thought they'd broken me. They thought I'd run. But I was just beginning." The first danger came an hour later, when my shift ended. I stepped into the alley behind the bistro, the air cool and damp with the promise of rain. The streetlights flickered, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. I was halfway to my car when I heard footsteps. Too close, too deliberate. A man, reeking of whiskey and stale cigarettes, stepped from the darkness, a broken bottle glinting in his hand. "Hey, salad girl," he slurred, his voice thick with menace. "You think you're too good to cry?" My heart slammed against my ribs, but I backed up slowly, gripping my keys between my fingers like a weapon. He lunged, the bottle swinging wide. I ducked, adrenaline spiking, and sprinted to my car, locking the doors just as his fist pounded the window. The engine roared to life, and I peeled out, my breath ragged. He didn't follow. But his laughter haunted me all the way home. In my tiny apartment, I stood under the shower, the water cold at first, then scalding. I scrubbed until my skin was raw, trying to erase the oil, the laughter, the memory of Claudia's sneer. The broken fan buzzed overhead, the light flickering like it couldn't decide whether to stay on. I didn't cry. Not when the salad hit, not when Claudia's words sliced through me. Not even when that drunk cornered me in the alley, but alone, with the water pounding against my back, something inside me cracked. Not weakness, but clarity. I wasn't their punching bag anymore. Wrapped in a frayed towel, I sat at my thrift store desk, the one I'd painted blue to hide its scars. The clock on the microwave blinked, 10:13 p.m. My phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. "Family dinner tomorrow. Dad expects you. Dress nice. No apology, no warmth, just a command." I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button. I wanted to type something cutting, something to make her flint. "You threw lettuce. I'm building an empire." But I didn't. Instead, I opened my laptop, the screen's glow harsh in the dim room. An email from the community center where I volunteered waited in my inbox, its subject line stealing my breath. Private inquiry, pilot funding proposal. The email was from Sarah, the center's director. A donor had visited my budgeting class last week, seen me teaching single moms and retirees how to stretch their dollars, and wanted to fund a pilot program based on my work. My hands shook as I read it again. Someone had noticed, not because I'd shouted, but because I'd shown up week after week in a fluorescent-lit room with plastic chairs and bad coffee. I taught people how to balance checkbooks, but more than that, I gave them dignity. And now someone saw me. I leaned back, the chair creaking under my weight. My heart thudded, not with fear, but with possibility. This was the secret I'd carried when Vanessa's salad hit my head, the spark I'd felt when Claudia mocked me. I wasn't just a waitress. I was building something, quietly, steadily, and it was starting to matter. The second danger came the next morning as I walked to the bus stop. A car swerved too close, tires screeching, missing me by inches. The driver, a stranger with a blank face, didn't stop, didn't look back. My knees buckled, but I caught myself on a lamppost, my pulse racing. Was it an accident or something more? I shook it off, telling myself Seattle drivers were reckless, but the unease lingered like a shadow. At the community center that afternoon, I taught my class as usual, my voice steady despite the knot in my stomach. The women in the room, mothers, grandmothers, survivors, listened intently, their notebooks filled with numbers and dreams. I saw myself in them, in their tired eyes and stubborn hope. After class, I checked the center's blog. A comment stopped me cold. "Is that Hadley from Lincoln High? I'd like to talk." J.T. Jonah Tate. A name I hadn't thought of in years, from a time when I was just a girl with a sketchbook and too many dreams. Jonah had been the quiet kid in art class, the one who noticed my drawings when everyone else laughed. Vanessa had mocked my sketches back then too, calling them sad scribbles. Jonah had stood up for me once, his voice shaking but firm. Now his profile said he was a strategist for impact-driven ventures, based in San Francisco but in town for an alumni event. My thumb hovered over the reply button. Could I trust him? Or was this another trap? Another chance to be used? That night I pulled out an old notebook, its pages worn soft from years of secrets. I flipped to a page dated 6 years ago, my handwriting neater then, full of hope. Project Freedom. A program to give power to women told to stay small. The words hit me like a punch. I'd forgotten that dream, buried it under shifts and bills and family scorn. But now, with the donor's email and Jonah's comment, it felt alive again. The third danger came late that night as I walked home from the bus stop. Footsteps echoed behind me, too close, too steady. I turned, my heart in my throat, and saw a figure in a hoodie, a knife glinting in their hand. "Give me your bag," he growled. I froze, my key still clutched like a makeshift weapon. "Now," he barked, stepping closer. I threw my bag at his feet and bolted, my lungs burning as I ran. He didn't chase me, but the sound of his laughter followed me into my building, where I locked the door and sank to the floor, shaking. The next day, I met Jonah at a small cafe on Pike Street, its wooden booth smelling of cinnamon and dark roast. He stood when I arrived, taller than I remembered, his dark curls tamed by time, his eyes still kind but steadier now. "Headley," he said, his smile warm but cautious. "It's been forever." I slid into the booth, my hands still trembling from the night before. "Didn't think anyone from Lincoln High remembered me," I said, testing him. He shook his head. "You were the one who painted truth when everyone else drew cliches. I saw your class on the nonprofit site. And that video from the bistro?" My spine stiffened. The salad incident had gone viral, a clip shared across social media, turning my humiliation into a spectacle. It wasn't my best moment, I said, keeping my voice even. Jonah leaned forward. They think they broke you, but that video? It woke people up. It showed who you are. He pulled a folder from his bag, sliding it across the table. I help fund ventures like yours, women-led, community-focused. Your Project Freedom could be big. I stared at the folder, my fingers brushing its edge. Could I trust him? Or was this another setup, another chance to be laughed at? The fourth danger struck that evening as I left the cafe. A power outage hit the block, trapping me in the building's elevator for 20 minutes. The air grew thick, the walls closing in, my claustrophobia clawing at me. I pressed the emergency button, my breath shallow, until the lights flickered back on and the doors opened. I stumbled out, heart pounding, wondering if the universe was testing me or if someone was pulling strings. At home, I opened Jonah's folder. His proposal was clear: funding, mentorship, a chance to turn Project Freedom into reality. But trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. Vanessa's text about the family dinner burned in my mind, her words too perfectly timed. I pulled out my notebook again, flipping to a page from my early 20s. Trust is earned, not given. Tested under fire. I closed my eyes, Grandma Rose's voice steadying me. You're already enough, she'd said. I was starting to believe her. The fifth danger came the next morning as I drove to the community center. A black SUV tailed me, too close, weaving through traffic to match my turns. My hands gripped the wheel, my pulse spiking. I took a sharp turn into a side street, losing them in the maze of downtown Seattle. Was it paranoia, or were Vanessa and Claudia playing a deeper game? I didn't know, but I wasn't waiting to find out. That afternoon, I called Jonah. They're planning something, I said, my voice low. That dinner, it's not just a meal. He didn't ask questions, just listened. Go, he said finally. But don't tell them about the project. Smile, watch, wait. I nodded, though he couldn't see me. He was right. The last time I let my guard down, I ended up with salad in my hair and a viral video to my name. This time, I'd be ready. The dinner was at Vanessa's penthouse, all glass and glitz, the kind of place that screamed money but felt cold. I wore a simple navy dress, my only heels, not to impress, but to stand tall. Vanessa greeted me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, her perfume overwhelming. Claudia lounged on a velvet chair, her wineglass glinting like a weapon. Dad nursed a scotch, his eyes on his phone. The table was set for a performance, not a family. So, Hadley, Vanessa said, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. Still slinging burgers? Claudia chimed in. No boyfriends yet? Too much pressure. I smiled, sipping water. Still married to husband number 3, Claudia? Or are we back to your maiden name? Her face froze. Just for a second. I didn't push, just watched. Then Dad slid a folder across the table. Just a formality, he said, his voice rehearsed. Your mother's estate. I opened it. My name was there, but wrong. My childhood nickname, Hattie, misspelled as Hattie. The document was a disinheritance clause, stripping me of Mom's coastal cabin, the one she'd promised was mine. My chest tightened, but I kept my face blank. I'll have my lawyer look at it, I said, sliding it back. Vanessa blinked. It's just paperwork, sis. I stood, my voice soft but steel. Then it can wait. I walked out, their silence louder than their laughter had been. Back home, I pulled a wooden box from my closet, one Mom had given me before she died. Inside was an envelope sealed with a notarized letter. My hands shook as I opened it. The words were clear. I leave my full estate to my daughter, Hadley Grace Carter. I read it twice, my breath catching. They thought they could erase me. But Mom had seen them coming. I sat at my desk, the city humming outside, and circled one word in Jonah's proposal. Yes. The game had changed. They'd pushed me down, but I was rising. Quietly, dangerously, and with a secret they'd never see coming. The Seattle skyline glittered beyond my apartment window, a mosaic of lights that promised dreams but delivered debts. I sat at my thrift store desk, the wooden box from Mom open before me, its contents spilling secrets I hadn't dared to touch until now. The notarized letter, yellowed at the edges, named me the sole heir to her coastal cabin, her savings, her everything. My fingers traced her signature, elegant and unwavering, like a vow she'd made to protect me from the vipers I called family. Vanessa's dinner, the disinheritance papers, Claudia's sneer. They thought they'd cornered me, but Mom had left me a shield, and I was ready to wield it. The clock blinked, 2:07. Sleep was a stranger tonight, my mind racing with Jonah's proposal and the weight of Mom's will. Project Freedom, the dream I'd scribbled in a notebook years ago, felt alive again, pulsing with possibility. But trust was a tightrope, and I'd fallen too many times to walk it blindly. Vanessa's text still burned in my phone. Family dinner tomorrow. Dad expects you. Dress nice. No apology for the salad incident, no hint of remorse. Just a summons, like I was still their obedient shadow. I closed the box, slid it under my bed, and whispered to the dark, "Not this time." Morning came too fast, gray light filtering through my curtains. I brewed coffee, the cheap kind that tasted like regret, and called Margaret Cole, a lawyer who'd once tipped me $20 for remembering her anniversary at the coffee shop where I'd worked years ago. Her voice was rough with sleep but sharp when I mentioned Mom's will. "Come by at 9, she said. "Bring everything." I tucked the documents into a folder, my hands steady despite the adrenaline buzzing in my veins. As I stepped outside, the air was damp, the city waking with the grind of buses and the chatter of early commuters. But something felt off. A black SUV idled across the street, its tinted windows hiding whoever was inside. My pulse quickened, the memory of last night's mugging still raw. I hurried to my car, checking my mirrors as I drove to Margaret's office. The SUV didn't follow, but its presence lingered like a warning. Margaret's office was a small, cluttered space downtown, smelling of old books and Earl Grey tea. She poured me a mug, her silver-framed glasses catching the light as she studied the will. "This is dynamite, Hadley," she said, her voice low. "If it's verified, it could void any later claims. But families like yours, they fight dirty." I nodded, my jaw tight. "I know. I was raised in their storm." She tapped a pen against her desk, her eyes sharp. "We file quietly, no fanfare. Let the court validate it first. And Hadley, don't tell a soul." I signed the petition to initiate probate, my signature a promise to fight, not for revenge, but for what was mine. The first tension hit that afternoon as I drove to the community center. The same black SUV appeared in my rearview mirror, weaving through traffic, always 2 cars behind. My hands gripped the wheel, my heart pounding as I took a sharp turn onto a side street. The SUV followed, closer now, its engine a low growl. I floored the gas, cutting through an alley and losing them in the maze of downtown Seattle. My breath came in short gasps as I parked, checking every shadow for movement. Was it Vanessa? Claudia? Or just my paranoia, sharpened by years of their cruelty? I didn't know, but I wasn't waiting to find out. At the center, I taught my budgeting class, my voice steady despite the adrenaline. The women in the room, single moms, retirees, survivors, scribbled notes, their faces lit with the kind of hope that comes from clawing your way out of nothing. I saw myself in them, in their stubborn refusal to break. After class, Sarah, the director, pulled me aside. "The donor's serious, Hadley. He's a private equity guy. Wants to meet Monday about your pilot program. My chest tightened, not with fear, but with possibility. Someone had seen my work, my quiet fight, and it mattered. But as I left, the memory of the SUV lingered, a shadow I couldn't shake. That night, I opened my old notebook, its pages worn from years of dreams and doubts. I found a line from my early 20s. People don't always stab you in the back. Sometimes they smile first. The words hit harder now with Vanessa's dinner looming. I knew it was a trap, a stage for their next act of control. Jonah's advice echoed. Smile, watch, wait. I closed the notebook, my resolve hardening. They'd pushed me down, but I was learning to rise. Quietly, dangerously. The dinner was at Vanessa's penthouse, a glass fortress overlooking Puget Sound. I wore my navy dress, my heels clicking softly as I stepped off the elevator. Vanessa greeted me with a smile that was all teeth, her lavender perfume suffocating. Claudia lounged on a velvet bar stool, her wine glass glinting like a blade. Dad sat at the head of the table, his scotch untouched, his eyes on his phone. Their friends, cousins I barely knew, colleagues with fake laughs, filled the room with chatter, but the air was thick with intent. Hadley, Vanessa said, her voice syrupy. Still pouring coffee for pennies? Claudia chimed in, her smile sharp. No man in your life? Too much pressure? I sipped water, my face calm. Still on husband number 3, Claudia? Or are we back to square one? Her smile cracked, just for a second. I didn't push, just watched, my heart steady despite the tension coiling in the room. Then Dad slid a folder across the table, his voice low and rehearsed. Just a formality, Hadley. Your mother's estate. I opened it, my breath catching. My name was there, but wrong. Hattie. My childhood nickname, misspelled as Hattie. The document was a disinheritance clause, stripping me of Mom's coastal cabin, the place where we'd sat on a weathered bench, her voice soft as she promised, "This will always be yours." My chest burned, but I kept my face blank. "I'll have my lawyer review it," I said, sliding it back. Vanessa blinked, her smile faltering. "It's just paperwork, sis." Claudia leaned forward, her pearls catching the light. "We're tidying up loose ends." I stood, my voice soft but steel. "If it's nothing, it can wait." The room went quiet, their eyes heavy on me as I walked to the bathroom. I locked the door, splashing cold water on my face. The mirror showed a woman who'd seen too much, betrayal, mockery, loss, but also strength. Mom's words echoed, "This will always be yours." I dried my hands, my resolve hardening. They wouldn't take it. Back at the table, I smiled, thanked them for dinner, and left. The elevator ride down was silent, my reflection in the chrome walls sharper, stronger. I wasn't the girl they'd mocked anymore. I was something else, something they'd underestimated. At home, I pulled Mom's box from under my bed, my hands trembling as I opened the envelope. The will was clear. I leave my full estate to my daughter Hadley Grace Carter. The notarized letter confirmed it, dated a year before she died, when she must have known they'd try to erase me. I read it 3 times, my breath catching. A sound escaped me, half laughter, half relief. They thought I'd fold, but Mom had armed me. The second tension came the next morning as I walked to my car. A man in a hoodie stepped from an alley, his face hidden, a knife glinting in his hand. "Your bag," he growled. My heart slammed against my ribs, but I'd been here before. I threw my bag at his feet and ran, my lungs burning as I reached my building. His laughter followed, but I locked the door, my hands shaking. Was it random, or was someone sending a message? I called Margaret, my voice steady despite the fear. "I found Mom's will, it's real." She paused, then said, "Come by now." At her office, she studied the documents, her eyes narrowing. This could change everything, Hadley. But they'll fight like hell. I nodded. Let them. I'm ready. She filed the petition that day, her warning clear: prepare for war. The third tension hit that evening as I drove home from the center. A power outage plunged my street into darkness, my car's headlights the only light. A figure darted across the road, forcing me to swerve. My tires screeched, my heart pounding as I regained control. Was it an accident or another warning? I didn't know, but I wasn't stopping. Over the next week, I played my part, worked my shifts, smiled at Vanessa's texts, helped Claudia with a gallery event like nothing had changed. But every night, I read Mom's will, her words a lifeline. Hadley Grace Carter, my sole heir. I didn't tell Jonah, didn't tell Sarah, didn't breathe a word. Silence was my armor now. The fourth tension came at the bistro mid-shift. A customer, drunk and belligerent, grabbed my arm as I cleared his table, his grip bruising. "You're that salad girl, huh?" he slurred, his breath sour. I yanked free, my heart racing, but he followed me to the kitchen, shouting until the manager intervened. The instant left me shaken, the viral video's shadow still haunting me. By Tuesday, Margaret called. The court accepted the petition, hearings in 3 weeks. I stood in my living room, the phone warm against my cheek. 3 weeks until the truth came out. 3 weeks until their lies crumbled. I whispered to myself, let them laugh while they can. The fifth tension struck the night before the hearing. I woke to the sound of glass shattering. A brick through my apartment window, a note tied to it, back off. My heart pounded as I called the police, my hands shaking as I swept up the glass. Was it Vanessa? Claudia? Someone they'd hired? I didn't know, but I clutched Mom's will tighter, my resolve unbreakable. The morning of the hearing, I dressed in a simple black blazer, my hands steady as I zipped my bag. Margaret met me at the courthouse, her thermos of coffee a quiet comfort. The room was packed. Waitresses from the bistro, a florist who'd known Mom, even a local reporter. Vanessa stood near the front, her borrowed blazer too tight, her smile smug. Claudia's lips were a thin line, her arms crossed. Their lawyer, Rupert Klein, strutted in like he owned the place. The judge, a woman with gray hair and a gaze like steel, opened the folder. In the matter of Carter versus Carter, we review the will of the late Eleanor Carter. She read Mom's words aloud. To my daughter, Hadley Grace Carter, I leave my home, the coastal cabin, the trust account, and all assets. Vanessa's mouth parted. Claudia gripped her chair. I slid a voice memo across the table, my voice steady. This is my mother, 8 months before she died. Margaret played it. Mom's voice filled the room, tender but firm. If I'm gone, Hadley gets everything. Claudia wants Vanessa to shine, but Hadley has the heart. Gasps rippled through the room. I added an affidavit proving Mom revoked Claudia's power of attorney. Claudia shot up, her voice venomous. She's lying. Eleanor called her a failure. The judge's voice cut through. This is a courtroom, not your stage. Whispers grew. Claudia lied? They tried to steal it all? The judge ruled. The will is valid. The estate transfers to Hadley Carter. The gavel fell. A thunderclap. Vanessa froze, her face pale. Claudia slumped, defeated. I walked to Vanessa, handing her an envelope. From the new property owner, I said. She opened it, her eyes widening. You're evicting us? I nodded. It's my house now. As I left the courthouse, the air was warm, the weight of their lies gone. I'd survived their storm, their laughter, their attempts to break me. I wasn't just free, I was whole. And as I drove to the coastal cabin, Mom's necklace around my neck, I knew Project Freedom wasn't just a dream. It was my fight, my legacy, and no one could take it away.